One of the hardest spiritual wounds that I feel like isn't talked about as much is not betrayal from another person, but betrayal from yourself.
Welcome to the Love Siren Podcast, your weekly dose of enchantment for the modern romantic. I'm Dahlia, your queer, poly, feminist witch, guiding you into your most magnetic, irresistible siren self. If you're craving ocean-deep love, delicious confidence, and results that last, you've just unlocked the right portal. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get into it.
Today, we are talking about something that I think everybody experiences eventually, but very few people actually admit to it happening, which is, what do you do after your intuition was wrong? Maybe you ignored a red flag and got hurt. Maybe you thought someone was your soulmate and they absolutely were not. Maybe you swore a manifestation was coming only to have it collapse in front of your face. Maybe your body said absolutely hell yes, only to have your life later say, absolutely not. And then suddenly you don't trust yourself anymore. You may have heard this phrase about how anxiety and excitement are two sides of the same coin. And what I mean by that is that in your body, anxiety and excitement can often mimic very similar symptoms. And it is your thoughts that determine if it is anxiety that is kind of running the show or if it's excitement. So if you're going to a party and, you're really excited to see your friends, you're really excited to meet some new people, but then on the drive over there, all of a sudden you start getting some panic and you start getting some, what if this is going to be terrible? What if everybody hates me kind of thoughts? It could be that you're actually excited to go to the party, but your brain is registering it as, oh no, I'm anxious. What am I anxious about? Let me try and figure out the reasons why I might be anxious. And I think that intuition and desire can be a very similar two sides of the same coin, where you want something so badly that you're like, obviously, this is the universe looking out for me. And then it just doesn't happen the way that you either expected it to, or again, it collapses in front of your face. In 2023, I left my 10-year relationship and I was 100% sure that I was moving to London. And I was just like, oh my God, this manifestation stuff is real. I am a full believer. I have drank all the Kool-Aid, and then it didn't happen. It was the summer of 2024 that I just simply could not get my visa situation sorted. So I was stuck in Las Vegas way longer than I was expecting to. I was honestly expecting to only be here for like one summer and then move on to London, and that is not what happened. So I was like, okay, well, maybe there's a reason why I landed in Vegas. It was a bit of a random choice for me to come here in the first place. Honestly, I was so sure that I was moving to London, so I wanted to have an address that didn't have any income tax. And that was the whole reason why I moved here. And so I decided to apply to two completely separate master's degree programs, and I was sure that I was a shoo-in for both of these. Like, I have pretty good grades. I already have a master's degree. I've already proven that I can do master's level work. And then I got rejected from both of them. And so I had this moment of just kind of being like, so then why am I here? Like, what is the point of living in Vegas? I don't want to be here. I want to be in London. 2024, I feel like I cried so much and I felt so lost. And then, of course, that year ended with Trump being elected for the second time. And I was like, universe, you have got to be kidding me. Why am I still in America? And so I was just lost. I was so confused as to why I landed in this spot. I was so confused as to what I was supposed to do to move forward with my life. I really tried to continue to make art, but I just couldn't find something that I could sink my teeth into after I quit stand-up comedy. I was doing a bunch of like weird little things that if you were following me on social media, you know that I was like trying a bunch of various things and like just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall. And I just felt so scattered and I felt so unsure about what my next step was supposed to be. And it was weird because I felt so sure about myself. I felt so sure about my potential. I felt so sure about where I wanted to be in my life and the kind of work that I wanted to do. But I just couldn't figure out what the universe was trying to tell me with all of this. So I started obsessing over divination. I was not willing to make any moves unless I knew all of the outcomes, which, spoiler, you unfortunately don't know if a decision is right for you until you make it and then find out. So obviously I had a pretty rough couple of years where I felt like every time I tried to make a step, I just felt like I hit this blockade. And so it's only normal that I started to lose confidence in myself and in my decision making. And so finally I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this. Let me slowly start to rebuild trust with myself. I don't know if moving to Vegas was the right choice even today. But one thing I will say is that I have absolutely turned it into the right choice. I have built a really beautiful life for myself here. I love that I can live on my own pretty easily. I've been able to create multiple friend groups out here. I have a lot of friends, a lot of hobbies, a lot of activities. I feel really blessed. Do I think that it was smart to rip up my life in Los Angeles for something that I wasn't 100% sure was going to happen? I don't know. But I feel very blessed that I trust myself that whatever decision I make, I know I will be okay. And one of the main ways that I got here was that I started to learn discernment between my anxiety, trauma, fantasy, and intuition voices. Because even though they sounded the same, they actually didn't feel the same. If you don't have a relationship to each of these parts of yourself, I highly recommend just giving each of them a name. And if you haven't seen Inside Out yet, my God, what a great representation of the chaos that is going on in our brains. So this is just what I have discerned for myself. You might resonate with it, you might not. I really encourage you to kind of go inwards and start feeling the difference between these. So for myself, my anxiety is very loud, it's urgent, it's catastrophic, and it demands immediate action and attention. Whereas my trauma response would often manifest as hypervigilance or overreading small shifts, especially in other people. And it was often fear pretending to be intuition, but it was just off enough that I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then for my fantasy, that turned into seeing things that I wanted to see. So I was in a relationship that I was hoping a commitment from. And so any small thing that even signaled something like commitment, I was like, okay, they're so close. I just need to be a little bit more patient, that was not true. I was turning potential into certainty. This was very much like, once I get my master's degree, then I will have a career. And I was mistaking what my destiny was supposed to be. Whereas my intuition is usually much quieter. It is the sound of a whisper, honestly. It's very grounded. It's often very emotionally neutral. And it never actually screams at me, and it never needs attention, which can be really hard to pay attention to, and it can be very easy to ignore. I think I used to be in this place with, as long as I listen to myself, I will always make perfect decisions. And now I'm more in this place of, I know that I can handle no matter what happens. So it doesn't totally matter what decision I make because I know that I will be okay. And I think that was something that was really hard for me because I didn't understand that I wasn't supposed to predict every possible painful thing that was supposed to happen. That was very much my anxiety coming to the front of the table. I didn't understand that wisdom comes after you experience things, especially when my intuition is so incredibly smart. It's so... like, I have this image in my head of this like old tree that I can just tap wisdom from, and I can magically know exactly the right thing to say at exactly the right time. And yet I couldn't use that skill to be able to bring me forward in my life. And then honestly, I feel like sometimes our intuition genuinely just isn't clear yet. Like, I'm really glad that I'm not doing a master's degree program while Trump is in presidency. They're completely destroying the Department of Education, and I would be really nervous about how much debt that I was taking on. So I'm really glad it didn't work out the way that I thought it was going to. I also just let my intuition be imperfect. I realize that it's a relationship that I have with myself and with my inner wisdom. Oh, one thing that I want to say too is that we know that generational trauma is absolutely a thing. Like, this has been scientifically proven that Holocaust survivors, those grandparents, will pass on the same level of PTSD to their children and to their grandchildren. And so, in my personal opinion, if we know that generational trauma exists, then I think we absolutely know that generational wisdom exists. It's just a little bit harder to measure. But you have so much wisdom of all of the people who came before you, all of your previous lives that you have lived, that you get to tap into. This is a relationship with that skill, with that wisdom, with your previous selves, with your ancestors, with your deities, with your spirit squad, all of that stuff. It's something that develops over time. And you have to learn your own language and your own symbolism and your own patterns gradually as you start to develop this relationship. And hopefully you can do it with such honesty that it can come quicker. So, some very easy intuitive practices that I would recommend. Number one is focusing on intuitive eating. This is something that I think is really easy, but also kind of hard at the same time. Our intuition is beaten out of us so early, and food is one of the main examples that I see of this, where growing up and you're in school and you're hungry, but it's not lunchtime, or you're not hungry, but it is lunchtime. And if you don't eat now, you won't eat for hours. We lose that relationship with this form of intuition that is so natural, so biologically natural to us. So if you are in a space where you are able to control your schedule, I would really recommend eating when it feels good, eating when you feel hungry, eating when you want a little treat even. And you can do an experiment also. So one of my favorite ones is thinking about salads versus burgers, right? Where maybe the quote unquote healthy choice is to have a salad, but you are really craving a burger. You may find that in one universe where you eat the salad, you're actually like really tired afterwards. And in the other universe where you have the burger, you feel a lot better because you're actually giving your body what it needs. Another one might be very specific to me. I got my driver's license after GPSs were a thing, and so I'm really bad at directions. But trusting yourself that you know which route to drive can be really helpful. So for me, it took me an embarrassingly long time to learn how to get to my local Trader Joe's, which is only 10 minutes away, and maybe like 4 turns. And I live on a grid system. Like, there was no excuse. But it took me a while to finally get it. And so when I finally did have that very first time without the GPS, it really encouraged this trust with myself. So maybe you can do something that's a little harder than just Trader Joe's. I also really love to go to the library and choose a book to read, or even one of my favorite activities is to go to the library, pick a random book off of a shelf, go to a random page, run my finger along the page, and pick a sentence and have that be its own form of divination. You never know when that is the sentence that you need to hear. I think one of the things that I really want to get across is that I do not think that the universe is punishing you for trusting yourself. I think that sometimes people can be really scared to admit when their intuition is wrong because they fear that they've lost their gifts. And that's just not true. I think that there can be some spiritual shame associated with this. I think that there can be a feeling of getting tricked, especially if you learn this stuff from somebody else, such as myself. Like, maybe you're like, oh my God, Dahlia lied to me this whole time, you know? That's not what's going on. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people, especially on social media, who learn all about manifestation, they learn all about witchcraft, and then something happens and they're like, nah, this is BS. And instead of trying to push through their discomfort and still trust the process and trust their journey, they just completely ignore it. They say it's the devil's work. They go back to Christianity, whatever it is. But not every intuitive feeling is going to lead you towards comfort. In fact, it's very possible that it's going to lead you towards boundaries or healing or clarity or growth. I really feel that way with my journey here. I have leveled up like crazy because of these roadblocks, not despite them. I love London. I always will. I feel so oddly at home there for a place that doesn't want me. And also, I love the sun, and their winters are absolutely brutal. You will go weeks without seeing the sun. I already have a master's degree that I regret. I would feel so annoyed to have 2 master's degrees that I regret. Ultimately, I feel like the only reason why I was applying to those master's degrees in the first place was because I was craving structure and something that I wanted to help people with. And boom, here we are with Love Siren Witchery. I didn't even need the master's degree. If you listen to my Anatomy of the Spell episode, I talk a lot about how you often don't want the actual manifestation itself. You want the feeling of what that manifestation is going to get you. And this was a prime example of that. The other piece of this is that I can always leave. Like, I'm not tied to Vegas. I don't own property out here. I will continue to have a relationship with all of the friends that I've made. It's not a big deal if I am like, you know what? This is dumb. I'm out. I tried it. I'm glad I did, but we're done. But right now, Vegas has a lot of pros for it that a lot of other major cities just aren't quite giving me. So I'm going to stay here until I feel like I'm done. It's definitely not my forever home, but it is for sure my home right now. And I want to remind you that you're in the same boat. There is literally no decision that you can't reverse. Everything is solvable, except for ignoring the problem. One of the things that I say, and a rule that I live my life by, is it's never too late to start something, but you have less time than you think you do. And what I mean by that is, if you're a person who is like, man, I really wish that I started this 5 years ago, the only way that you are going to get to that place where you are 5 years in is by starting today. Sure, I wish that I was 10 years deep into Love Siren Witchery, but I didn't know that it existed until very recently. And everybody that I look up to of businesses that I want to have, all of them are 5 to 10 years deep into their businesses. And so that gives me a lot of hope and a lot of trust that as long as I can kind of keep going with this, it will follow. It will happen. I just have to be patient. I just have to put the work in. I would love to know how this episode landed for you. Are you experiencing a trust fall where you are not catching yourself at the moment? Or have you experienced this in the past? I would love to know what ways have helped you build self-trust, either in the past or right now. My DMs are always open, and as always, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to talk with you in the next episode.